All right, everyone, welcome to the first episode of the Pilipinx-American Stories Podcast. I am your host, Alfredo. And when I say first episode of the podcast, I mean the first official episode that will be launched when the podcast launches. And I say that as a disclaimer because I recorded the essentially the first episode of the podcast weeks ago, but I felt like I needed to have this introduction episode because I didn't really give a reason as to why I wanted to start a podcast in the first place, and I wanted to just give a little bit of background of the Filipinx American Stories project itself. So, the Filipinx American Stories project is a multi platform where I do storytelling in the forms of writing, video, podcasting as of late, and the Filipinx American Stories project stemmed from me wanting to better understand the diaspora in a sense, and it started on Twitter as this Filipino American History Month project where I was highlighting different people of different disciplines, I guess you could say, and it was something that I wanted to continue, but I didn't know how to do it. So that's why I started writing a little bit more. And the first project that came up was representation over pure visibility stories of Filipinx Americans in San Diego. So that was the first written project. It was to better understand my mentors and some of the leaders that uh, are based out of San Diego. And then following that was stories of Filipinx Americans understanding the process. And that was more so getting to the nitty gritty of things and understanding the middle ground, I guess you could say, like what it takes to get those wins and everything. Like we see those wins all the time, but we don't see the journey getting to those. So that was the second project that I put out. And now with the podcast and everything, this is essentially a continuation of what the written project is supposed to be about. But as much as I love writing and everything, this podcast is more of a platform where I could be a little bit more consistent. In terms of the written project and everything, there was a deadline like per project and everything like that, and that was in 2018 and recently 2020. So the development of those projects took about like 10 months to a year, but I wanted to be able to have a consistent flow of content throughout the year rather than just having something that's released at like a certain month or a certain date. So this is what the whole podcast is all about. And just a little bit of intro and everything. I also with this episode I'm gonna go along with how the flow of how the flow of these episodes generally work. So just a little bit of an intro to what the Filipinx American Stories podcast is all about. So I'm here and we are here, which includes guests. We are here to better understand aspects of the Filipinx American diaspora. We cover topics such as, but not limited to, history, community, and Filipinx American culture. And I emphasize the whole but not limited part a lot because we could be talking about things that range from pop culture all the way to community organizing, etc., etc. So I wanted to make that apparent. I'm not just sticking to specific topics, but I am doing them in the context of the Filipinx American diaspora. So generally, I'll have guests come on to the podcast to talk about certain topics. We'll have something that's a little bit more discussion based, as podcasts should be. Like we'll have conversations about I don't know, like books and such like that, what people do and why they do it. Again, to reiterate the whole like it's a continuation of these written projects and everything to get like that conversation going. And along with having guests and everything, I will be doing these solo episodes, and it's more so my kind of stream of consciousness kind of episode where like if I'm not or if someone is not available at the time that I want to speak on this, I'll usually take it into my own hands and be more like, okay, so where is my thought process going with this? And I'm hoping that these kind of episodes will create some kind of discussion and also leave room for episodes later on where we could talk about these kind of topics again. And following up on that, I might not, or I'm most likely not going to leave a topic as just like a singular episode. There could be developments going on, so just a disclaimer with that. There could be another episode where I'm talking about, I don't know, let's say like culture and food, and then I'm giving like the basis of that, but then I'll probably go into something a little deeper with a guest or like myself and everything, depending on how that topic develops over time. And that being said, this is more so the stream of consciousness episode that I'm talking about. And yeah, like I said, this is something that's more so like a flow of thoughts, not really anything where I'm like bouncing off ideas with anyone, but it's just really me speaking from like my mind, my perspective, and everything. And that being said, the topic of today is Filipinx American Allyship in the context of today. So, if y'all don't already know, the Black Lives Matter movement is still continuing. Rest in power to Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and all the brothers and sisters that have passed due to police brutality and or racial violence. And I just wanted to give a disclaimer about allyship. So before I even go into the whole allyship, being myself who I am, I'm a Filipinx American. I was raised in San Diego and everything. I wanted to help people understand that the Black Lives Matter movement is not, or rather, the Black Lives Matter movement is a black movement created by black people for black people. And me being someone that's not black, a non-black person of color, this is not my movement to gain spotlight, but rather me to be an ally towards it. And this is why I came into this topic of allyship and everything, because that's really the most I can be, along with other people who have like no black blood in them or have no black descent or anything like that. So this is why I really want to talk about allyship, because as a Filipinx American, Asian American, non-black, it is my duty to be an ally during these times. So I'm going to be referencing a few docs. So usually during this part of the episode, this is what I consider the bulk of everything. So this is where all the conversation's going, but this is where most of like my stream of consciousness is going. So during like these bulks of each episode, I will be like having conversations with people, but I also will be referencing certain documents depending on if the episode calls for it or not. So in this episode, I will be touching upon a guide to allyship, and the creator of that is Annette Nguyen, or Annette Nguyen, and Beyond Earth, Wind, and Fire, the elements of Filipinx allyship. And with both of these documents, I will be citing them in the description, and I will also be offering the citation in Instagram or whatever platform I choose to post this episode in. So with these resources, I'm actually just going to be touching on upon a few things. At the end of the day, after this episode is done, I suggest taking a look at these documents. They've been very helpful for me to understand, because when this whole thing started after the murder of George Floyd by through police my words. So after the murder of George Floyd through police brutality, I was very confused. I didn't know what my place was. Like I was very confused about what it meant to be an ally and everything like that. What it means to be active during these kind of times, and I was just like, do I need to protest? Like do I need to go riot and everything? Like I really didn't know, because I felt very confused. I was very angry and everything. But a lot of these documents did help. So again, Beyond Earth, Wind, and Fire, the elements of Filipinx Allyship. This was created by Flow, which is Fordham University. Shout out to the Bronx in New York. This is their Filipino organization based out in that university, and A Guide to Allyship by Annette Nguyen. And these documents did help a lot when it came to grounding myself in what allyships really look like for non-black people of color. But again, I'll only be touching upon a few points on here, reiterating. Please take a look at these documents when you can. This is really helpful. This is really helpful. That's all I really got to say. It's very like it's broken down to the point where it's digestible for the audience. So I do appreciate the creators for putting this together. So again, like I was mentioning a while ago that the Black Lives Matter movement is a black movement for black people by black people to stand up and be at the spotlight, at the front lines, at the forefront of this movement. And as a Filipinx American, all I could really do is be an ally. But what does that look like? So I'm going to be touching upon a few of the points right here. So one of the biggest points that I came across was unearthing your internalized anti-blackness, and this is from a guide to allyship. And the definition or the description on here is reflect on how anti-blackness shows up in your life. We often miss our own biases, but be intentional about finding those blind spots. This can show up more when feeling panic, fear, anger, leading to actions like calling the police. So going on the Beyond Earth, Wind, and Fire document, this goes on the whole aspect of colorism. So, as defined by that, colorism is a prejudice or discrimination, especially with a racial or ethnic group, favoring people with lighter skin over those with darker skin. So, this is a pretty big topic on that occurs heavily in non-black spaces, especially the Filipinx American or Filipinx culture or the community and everything. I'm actually going to be having another episode coming out after this one where I'm talking with a friend about anti-blackness, how we've seen it. But the main thing is a lot of it is rooted in colonial mentality as well as the Asian model minority myth. It's essentially like well, it's if I feel like it's essentially framing us into that more American mindset where if you're white, then you're right, and then you'll achieve what's possible in the states or wherever you are and everything. So that can be seen through aspects such as demeaning someone with darker skin, or I'm going through this document again. This is like my stream of conscious and everything. So two examples on here is you don't act black, you're the whitest black person I know. That is an example of anti-blackness. It's like implying that, well, I'm just going to read off this. So this implies that white and black people or any other race for that matter behave a certain way. So it's like you're giving like this predisposition kind of like look or kind of character before even getting to know the person and just giving them that like stereotype or whatever before like again like before getting to know them. And that's like one example of anti-blackness and everything. Another one is the whole skin color thing. Again, I'm bringing this up in another episode very soon, but the whole skin whitening thing that goes on in Filipinx American culture, like the motherland promotes skin whitening like no other. And that's just a few aspects of anti-blackness, and it just this is what it means to unearth your internalized anti-blackness, because this is just there are many levels to how we see it. It could be as like skin whitening, that's just like, oh, you're taking care of your skin. But when you realize the history behind that, it's like, oh, you're kind of erasing like a darker part of your skin. And that translates to how a lot of like Asian Americans, Filipinx Americans view like darker skin and black people in the States or just anywhere else. And that kind of goes on the whole minority myth. It's like, but the thing is, like, people don't understand that. Ooh, where was I gonna go with this? Again, this is like a stream of consciousness episode, but I might just go into it a little bit, but yeah, biggest thing is just unearth your internalized anti-blackness. I'm personally still trying to understand where like I'm pretty sure there's still like bits of it, mainly because of how I was raised and how other people in my family used to see black people. But I'm still growing as a person. I'm still learning. I'm a human. I'm still learning how to unearth it like every single day as much as I can. So that's one of the biggest things I could say for allyship. Another is educating your family and friends on the injustices of black people. Oh, injustices black people face globally. So it says here, talking to your relatives is uncomfortable, but as a non-black person, we have the responsibility to try. We must explain the clear differences between our parents' immigrant experiences and the black experience, both historically and the present. So going back to the whole Asian model minority myth, that's basically saying, as stated in the Beyond Earth, Wind and Fire document, it's basically saying that the Asians are what other people of color should strive to be. Work as hard as these Asian Americans, and you'll get to the same kind of success as they will, and then you'll get to the same kind of success as a white person. So when people get into that like myth or whatever, it's like saying, "Oh, you kind of just have to work hard," but that diminishes the history that black people have faced since they were essentially stolen from their land and brought over here against their will. It ignoring that aspect of the black experience is very damaging in that way because you're not everyone is in the same kind of playing field when it comes to making it here in the states. A lot more people are disenfranchised, especially black people, with being slaves in the past and going through civil rights and everything, and just going through everything that's going right now, and just that's one of the things that you could speak about with your family. Like again, educate your family and friends on the injustices of black people face globally. This is just one thing, but again, do your research before you have these kind of conversations with your family and everything. It's a very heavy kind of way to show allyship, but it is for the long game, and that's what I want to emphasize for this part. And one another thing is that was brought in from a guide to allyship is listen to black people very carefully. They are telling us everything we need to know. Do not ask black people or other people of color to educate you on white supremacy. Many answers are a Google search away. So again, yeah, listen to people who have like the black experience, everything. Like one of my favorite people to listen to is Dave Chappelle. If you listen to his 846 special, he goes on telling how he's been talking about this kind of stuff for years, and that kind of just reiterates the fact that there are people in the black community that have been talking about this years, and we have to start listening because at the end of the day, only black people are able to tell the stories of other black people. You can't expect someone that's like Asian American, someone that's Latinx, someone that's white to educate you on what the black experience is like in the States or just wherever you may be. So, yeah, just listen in on whatever live streams are available. Listen to more black music, listen to more black comedians, watch more like black American driven kinds of content. There's a whole bunch on Netflix. I'll probably be linking some of these in the episode description a little later on. One piece of content that I really like watching was on the Stats Elements page on YouTube. It was this hip hop black experience panel that was hosted by B Boy Box One and B Girl Maka, and it was them basically moderating a panel of other like black B boys and black B girls to talk about like history and then everything that goes on with like the breaking culture and how to be more of an ally and everything. So I suggest watching that. Again, I'll link a good chunk of these in the description. And last but not least, really just educate yourself. This is more something that's like off the top of my head. Like educate yourself on like different things. There are so many resources out there, including like these documents. There's a lot of resources that are in the Black Lives Matter website and everything. There's a Black Lives Matter card that's been going around that's being consistently updated to, yeah, so just educate yourself with these resources and everything. They're everywhere. And yeah, just continue to do that because like with everything that's going on, like the whole Black Lives Matter movement is not a trend. It's something that's going to be forever. It's something that's going to be in it for the long haul, and I don't think it's something that's going to stop anytime soon, which is great because we need more of that like education in our life to better understand what kind of systems are creating like this disenfranchisement for black people and other people of color depending on the situation. But again, I'm talking about what it means to be an ally during the Black Lives Matter movement and everything. So this is essentially how the bulk of like these kind of episodes go, and after that I'll usually do like this advice section. Again, I kind of touched upon it a little bit, but continue to educate yourselves on just like everything that's going on. Like, yeah, just take the time to read some of these documents, take the time to read all these other documents that are going around, and just, yeah, just listen to people a little bit more, have these kind of discussions with, oh, family and friends. Oop, I just burped a little bit, but yeah, continue this for the long haul. This is not something that's going to be like an overnight thing. These are conversations that will be passed down from generation to generation. So just keep in mind that this is going to be something that's forever. And usually at the end of like these kind of episodes and everything, I'll be giving like shout outs or whatever, or just like doing plugs of whatever episodes are going to be like, or whatever plugs that my guests usually have and everything. But this is, again, this is more of a stream of consciousness kind of episode. And that being said, thank y'all for listening to the first episode of the Filipinx-American Stories Podcast. This is going to be there's going to be a lot of other topics that will deal on matters like this and just understanding allyship and understanding anti-blackness. And there's also going to be content that's going to be outside this realm too, but it's going to be very depending on whatever topics kind of just come up in my mind or everything. But yeah, thank you again for listening to the first episode of the Pilipinx American Podcast. All the links, all the citations will be in the description or wherever you are seeing this. It might be on Instagram. All that will be in the captions and everything. So, again, thank you for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. Thanks.